It's like every day or every other day we're seeing a new Ayatollah getting assassinated, and some other Iranian leader getting killed. It's definitely been interesting to follow Twitter during those moments. But I mean, I was actually probably a uniquely as a young conservative that has some sympathies for the America First anti-war kind of faction of the Republican Party. I wouldn't fully put myself in that camp, but I mean I would have a lot of similarities there. That okay, I don't want to fight wars on behalf of a foreign nation. But I was actually in support of the Iran attacking Iran, and I'm actually kind of generally happy how things are going on. Not perfect, but I think that's just a part of war. And so when people have been critical on the right, and then obviously the left's going to critique anything that Trump does, I'm in full support of what's going on. There's obviously some things that will be different, and there's some sad portions of it. But I think that it was definitely necessary what was going on because at absolute bare minimum, Iran could not have a nuclear weapon. I'm definitely not for hey, let's go bring back basically taking over the nation and being dedicated to a regime change. I think that never goes well typically. Um, but I think that is the next step for America is that we do need to help with the regime change here because with how much power the Ayatollah has held over the past 40 years and that group, even though they're actually a minority, I think I saw that like it was like 70% people in the nation of Iran were actually against the current government. Although that's true, I think that we need to help equip them to have a democratic nation, have a democratic society. But that needs to be done wisely and well. I don't know if you have any thoughts on Iran and also on when it comes to the regime change.
Sure. Yeah, I think my perspective, as I've watched things unfold, I would share the sympathy for being hesitant to get entangled in foreign wars. After all, President Trump ran his campaign on the promise of no new wars. And so, if,
Reminds you of no, sorry to interrupt, but it reminds me of the good thing you can't run for re-election unless you
yeah,
for some
yes,
reason tries. When in 92, well 98, in 88, W. Bush had no new
yes,
taxes,
that's
and
right.
then that
Yes,
destroyed him. And so it definitely is. It kind of reminds me of that a little bit
yes, I've thought
at a
of that
different
as
level.
well. So he had, politically, I think, needs to execute this war quickly and effectively in order to avoid some serious blowback to the MAGA movement and the GOP in the midterms and even in the next general election or the election in 2028. Because yeah, I think there's a growing sentiment on the right of we don't want to get involved in these wars in the Middle East or really anywhere. Like we kind of want to take care of our own house first. We've got lots of problems domestically, which some of those we'll talk about later on in this episode. But at the same time, you got to recognize that America is a global empire, and like it or not, and um, there's so many complicating factors just by virtue of how the American regime relates to the other nations of the world, and there are real problems, real difficulties, real challenges that come with that are in the national interest, are in the interest of our people, and so on the one hand, yeah, I give, based on his track record so far, I give a lot of deference to the administration, to President Trump. I think his judgment has seemed to be pretty good so far in terms of handling foreign affairs, whether you look at the Venezuela operation or, um, you know, you also don't forget in the first year of his term how many little kind of skirmishes and wars he sort of negotiated and into. His objective seems to be in all of these things securing America's interest and doing everything he can to put an end to wars that are happening. And so, yeah, well, I definitely would I've never loved the idea over the last couple of years as this conversation has gone on. Never really loved the idea of going and invading Iran. I was actually quite nervous when we struck Iran last year. I was kind of like, what's going to happen here? Is this going to boil over into something bigger? Thankfully, it did not. This time around, it's like, okay, we're we're going in, we're taking out the Ayatollah. So my stance at the moment really is just I'm going to wait and see what happens. Just pray that that the Lord would allow this conflict to end quickly. When it comes to what to do next, I think that's a very challenging question. On the one hand, we certainly don't want, a reincarnation of the previous Iranian regime. At the same time, I think, and what many people recognize is, we also can't we shouldn't try to reproduce American, democracy